Welcome to Canada Inside, where clarity meets courage, and every truth deserves to be heard. While mainstream voices push the same tired stories, here we dig deeper, question the powerful, and reveal what others won't. You won't get empty headlines, you'll get context, facts, and real talk. So hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, and more importantly, make your voice count in the comments. Because together, we'll bring truth back to Canadian politics. Mark Carney steps to the podium, confident and composed. The message is clear: Canada, under his leadership, is open for business. He promises to accelerate development, to reduce red tape, to make the country a global leader in energy and infrastructure. It's a speech filled with optimism and ambition. But for many Canadians, especially those west of Ontario, it's not the words they hear, it's what's missing between the lines. Because beneath the polished promises, much of what held Canada back under Justin Trudeau is still in place. Canadians have heard these kinds of commitments before. When Carney took the reins from the outgoing Trudeau government, there was a sense, especially in Alberta, that perhaps finally, Ottawa might change course. There was talk of dismantling interprovincial trade barriers, of reforming environmental assessments that delay projects for years, and of fast-tracking national infrastructure that boosts economic self-sufficiency. But the reality, as Danielle Smith and others have pointed out, is more complicated. Carney introduces new legislation, like Bill C-5, meant to streamline permitting processes, and declares some energy corridors as projects of national interest. He speaks of a one Canadian economy, where provinces work together rather than at odds. On paper, it sounds like a positive step. But he also makes a quiet, deliberate decision not to repeal key Trudeau-era laws that many argue are the biggest obstacles to growth. The most controversial among them is Bill C-69, dubbed by critics as the No More Pipelines Bill. It still stands. That single fact, keeping Bill C-69 on the books, is all many Western Canadians need to hear to confirm their suspicions. For years, provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan have struggled to get major energy projects off the ground, not because there's no demand, but because federal regulations make it nearly impossible. Environmental reviews stretch for years. Permits pile up. Investment dollars leave. And yet, despite Carney's promises of reform, those same restrictions remain in place. The contradiction is stark. Carney, who built his global career as a man of action, first in the Bank of Canada, then the Bank of England, is now Prime Minister of a country eager for bold leadership. But instead of sweeping away the regulatory mess left behind by the Trudeau government, he tinkers at the edges. He announces funding for select projects. He grants a few exemptions. He holds press conferences with smiling premiers. But the core framework, the machinery that slows or blocks development altogether, stays untouched. This is why many in Alberta, in BC's interior, in northern Ontario, and even parts of Atlantic Canada, view Carney's agenda with suspicion. It feels less like a course correction and more like political theater. A few tweaks here, a few headlines there, but no real structural change. The tanker ban off the BC coast remains. Emissions caps on the oil and gas sector continue. Industrial carbon pricing escalates. And projects that once defined Canada's ambition, Northern Gateway, Tech Frontier, Energy East, are still ghosts of what could have been. The result is frustration. Not the kind of frustration born from ideology, but the kind that comes when people feel ignored. Because in towns like Grande Prairie or Lloydminster, people don't want speeches, they want jobs. They want to know their province has a future in this country. They want the federal government to stop punishing their industries while importing oil from foreign regimes. And they're tired of being lectured on sustainability by people who've never visited a rig, worked a farm, or operated a sawmill. Danielle Smith captures that frustration. She calls out Ottawa's duplicity. On one hand, the federal government talks about energy security, yet on the other, it keeps the very policies that stifle it. She lists 9 regulatory roadblocks that continue to prevent Alberta from unleashing its full potential. And she's not alone. A growing number of premiers, industry leaders, and everyday Canadians are asking the same question: if Mark Carney is serious about growth, Why is he still governing under Trudeau's rules? There's also a deeper issue, one of political credibility. Carney may be a newcomer to elected politics, but he carries the legacy of the Liberal establishment. He talks about restoring economic balance, but he champions carbon markets and ESG frameworks. He says he wants more investment, but he still imposes rules that send investors packing. And while he presents himself as a unifier, his decisions continue to divide East and West, urban and rural, elite and working class. Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, sees the opportunity. He doesn't just critique Carney's policy, he questions the assumptions behind it. He challenges the idea that prosperity and environmental stewardship must be at odds. He points out that under Carney's approach, Canada exports less energy while importing more, weakening national sovereignty and strengthening foreign interests. For Poilievre, this isn't about left versus right, it's about common sense versus ideology. That message resonates. Across the prairies in small business communities and among tradespeople, the conservative movement is gaining momentum, not because of blind loyalty, but because it speaks to lived experience. When people see their natural resources locked underground, when they see projects killed by federal delay, when they see taxes rise and incomes stagnate, they don't care about glossy slogans. They want a government that works for them. Mark Carney, for all his credentials, must reckon with this reality. If he wants to be the leader who builds Canada's future, he has to do more than adjust Trudeau's framework. He must dismantle the parts that no longer serve. That includes Bill C-69. That includes restrictive emissions caps that ignore provincial autonomy. That includes tax policies that discourage innovation. And that includes moving away from symbolic climate gestures toward real environmental and economic solutions. The path forward isn't about extremes. It's not about ignoring climate or abandoning responsibility. It's about balance. Canada can be a global leader in responsible resource development. We can build pipelines and protect rivers. We can grow our economy and reduce emissions, not through federal punishment, but through innovation, local control, and private sector leadership. But that only happens when federal policy matches federal rhetoric. Until then, Canadians will continue to watch with skepticism. They'll see the announcements but look for the action. They'll listen to the speeches but judge the results. Because at the end of the day, real development doesn't come from promises, it comes from removing the barriers that block progress. And right now, too many of those barriers still wear Trudeau's fingerprints, even if Carney's hands are on the wheel. As the next election looms, Carney will face a choice. He can continue Trudeau's legacy in a softer tone. Or he can pivot, embracing the national interest over partisan interest, empowering provinces instead of controlling them, and letting Canada's builders, not just its bureaucrats, shape the country's next chapter. Whether he has the will, or the courage, to make that shift is the question voters will answer. At Canada Inside, we'll keep tracking these critical developments, cutting through distractions to expose what really matters. Subscribe, stay sharp, and join us as we uncover the forces shaping Canada's tomorrow. Because truth deserves a voice, and here, your voice has power. Let's reclaim the conversation together.